Hey, what's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create vector files specifically for Lonestar Adhesive's TriLayer Acrylic. This is my first time using this material, so I wanted to break down exactly how I'm approaching the file setup, what I'm thinking about in terms of contrast, cut order, and how to make sure each layer shows up the way it's supposed to. Being that tri-layer acrylic isn't your standard single color sheet, it takes a little planning to get the most out of those color shifts. So I'll be working through the design process in Xtool creative software. And most of the things I'm talking about can be transferred over to Lightburn or whatever tool you're using. So let's jump. So the first thing you're going to want to do is upload a file into XCS or whatever program you're using. I have this support your local poll. And you can see that as it is now, you can't ungroup anything. You can't really edit too much. So they would end up being all one color as it is. So I'm going to resize it a little bit, and then I'm going to go up here to release compound vector. And when you hit the release compound vector, what it does is it separates each of the individual layers or the elements in the SVG into curves. So now each of the letters, each of the circles, all of those different things can be manipulated and moved around and all that kind of stuff freely. So I'm just moving all of the pieces that I don't currently need out of the way. If there was anything that I don't need at all, I would delete it right now. Okay, so now I'm just going to move these things out of the way so I can actually work with this piece here. And as I said, these letters now became curves. So all of the missing pieces here have to be put back. And so what I'm doing is selecting the main piece as well as the little hole or missing piece of that letter and actually creating a compound vector out of those two. So by selecting both of those pieces and then going to make compound vector, it creates almost like a weld, but it just creates it back kind of to that letter. Um, I'm doing individual letters, and doing that, you could do separate colors or whatever you wanted to do. But you can also just select all of those pieces and hit make compound vector, and then it'll all just be one piece and probably be faster. Which I kind of did anyway, because I'm going to have this top and bottom banner be the same color. So I'm going to go in here and click each of these letters and group them again and make them compound vectors. And the reason I'm doing compound vectors and not welding or grouping is because it's going to change the color as well as all the power settings and things like that will transfer over, and I can name it. So you won't lose it in your big list of vector files in here. So I just named the top support Pole Dancer. All right, and then go in here. I'm gonna do the same thing with the stars, and they're gonna be a different color, so they're gonna be a separate vector. And so when we broke apart the compound vector in the beginning, we made this centerpiece here a bunch of different pieces. And that's going to be really difficult to play with. So I'm going to go in and lock the vectors we just made, just so I can group everything in the center. So now just go ahead and click somewhere on the screen and then grab everything, and we're going to make a compound vector out of that as well. So now that centerpiece is its own element. You could change colors or whatever you want to do with it. Remember those pieces that we so rudely moved off of our canvas? Well, we need them again. So I'm going to grab the two, I guess, most outer pieces, and I want to align them. Notice that one's slightly smaller than the other. So when we center a line and you make a compound vector, we now have this border. And it is already the size we need. So we're going to go ahead and just... And so I like to center from the center So I'm going to highlight the center piece and the outer piece, and then we're going to just put the... And then go back and unlock everything because we're going to start. So now I'm going to select all of the text that I'm going to use, being that they're going to be the same color. I'm just going to make them red so that when I do edit settings and things like that, they're edited at the same time. And then I'm going to go in and make these stars a little bit bigger. And so I'm going to choose how big I want this first star, and then I'm going to go up and just match the height. But you make sure that the little lock thing is locked. Otherwise, you're going to have some wonky stars. And somehow these things were rotated when I took them out of the vector. I'm not sure how, but that's an easy fix. So if you wanted to edit the font and things like that, now that we've made it a compound vector, we can separate those from the piece we're going to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose the top and bottom banners and move them out of the way and recreate that same text using a font that I want. I'm going to do the top and bottom separately, just so I don't have to ungroup them, and they can be moved independently. And I'm using this distressed font. I don't know, I bought it on Etsy, I think. And I recommend sizing it proportionally. If you start changing the way the font is proportioned, it just kind of looks funny, especially when you have to make it into the arch. If it's taller than it's supposed to be or wider than it's supposed to be, it just doesn't come out right. And the Xtool software makes this part really easy, opposed to something like Corel Draw or something like that, that would make you fit to path and things like that. This one you just... to you if you want the sizes to match. Some people are super OCD with that. I actually like them when they're different sizes. And obviously, if I'm going to make a support your local pole dancer, you got to have the bigger pole. So now I'm just... So now I'm going to go in and just make sure that everything is proportioned correctly. So the overall radius was off by a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and select these stars, make sure they're where I want them. And you definitely want to do this before the next step. Because what we're going to do next is we are going to create vectors out of the colors. So we're going to pretty much just turn this thing into 2 layers because we're going to do black, red, and the actual material is white. So I'm going to go in and choose. So before I can make my red layer, I have to go in and choose the font, and I'm going to convert this to a path. And that's because you can't take the font and then to keep things organized, itself, I'm going to go back in and go and do that. Each of these pieces. So and then to keep things organized, I'm going to go back in and rename each of these pieces. So black and red. And that's it. So now we're going to go in and create the circle that's actually going to be our cut layer. That's it. And I do this separately just so it doesn't get mixed up in everything else. So what you want to do is just match the radius of your piece, right? If you're not trying to cut this out, then skip this step. Otherwise, you're going to make a hole in your desk. That's your cut settings, And this is going to vary on everyone's laser. So make sure you're doing a material test before you start this process, or you're not going to know which color is going to take which power, or how much power it's going to take to cut through this stuff. And I don't know what to tell you about that, other than you should do a material test. So now that we have our layers set, you can go in and just choose red and black, and then choose whatever settings correspond to that. I'll post a picture down in the corner here of my material test just so you can kind of see how I based these settings off the colors that I got. And if you don't know how to do a material test, go check out the video. Go in and select the layers that you're actually going to engrave and select all of those and choose the line per centimeter value that you're going to use. Um, don't choose everything because then you're going to grab the cut line too.